Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we are going to recap the ADCC European, Middle East, and African trials, the first trials of the ADCC 2020 season. We are going to recap Fight to Win 184. We are going to preview who's number one, the championship event with some stacked divisions, and we are going to preview Grapple on the Tempo and Fight to Win 185. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, joined by my co-host,
Emil.
How you doing, Emil?
Good. How's it going, Maine?
It's going pretty good. It's been a bit of a busy week. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about that. Maybe in the outro. Maybe not. It's been a busy week. It was very fun to kick off ADCC season with the European trials. The European trials in Poland. The first trials. So now we have some entrants for who we know, pending visa issues as always.
And it's Europe, Africa, and
Middle East. Yeah,
Yep.
it's the European. It's the European. So ADCC. Let's do a recap because we are now officially in ADCC season.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this a little more when we get into the recap for the trials. ADCC is a big event. It is the biggest event in grappling and submission grappling. It is the most prestigious event in submission grappling. They host trials. They host trials on each continent, or kind of each continental region. They have North American trials, they have South American trials, they have the European and Asian and African trials, and they have the Oceanic and Japanese trials, essentially. Asian trials is what we call those. This is the first one. Each region gets 2 trials. For the men, you can win a slot at each trials. 8 slots in total that you can win if you win your division. For the women, it is the second trials in every region that gets a women entrant for those 2 divisions that are available for the women. This is the first one. We now have our first official names for ADCC 2022. It got bumped by a year, but we're back, and I'm very excited, Emil.
Yeah. ADCC, as I hope everyone knows who's listening, as Maine said, is huge, and you typically... the tournament operates based on invitation. It's extremely prestigious. You either have to have been active in ADCC the year prior, or the event prior, and or be invited, and usually it's like world champion level people.
Yeah, usually it's like there's a grappling reason that you come in. And previously it was a lot more MMA fighters, but as grappling has matured into its own sport, kind of divorced from that a bit, it is really like Mikey Musumeci got an invite. Nicholas Margali got an invite. Even though they weren't active in the ADCC kind of structure for tournaments and trials, they were of the multiple-time IBJJF champions, multiple wins over other guys that do well and place and win ADCC. Yeah, you're on the level. You're going to get an invitation. Moji Assam has even talked about nowadays, like, look, I don't care who you are. If you want in, you do a trials. You lose trials, whatever. But we are going to limit our invites significantly if you're not doing trials. So if you want a piece of the ADCC pie, do trials. The great thing about ADCC that kind of separates it from other premier big events is that there is a pathway for anyone to get into the event.
And I will say, especially from the North American trials, some of the people that qualify in do well. Like Mason Fowler qualified in.
Yeah.
And Ethan
Mickey Ryan. I mean, those guys that qualify in can win and do win. Like Gordon Ryan qualified in and eventually went on to win.
Ethan Krellinston got injured, and actually, all the more reason to enter through qualification, because the last ADCC had 22 people got injured. It was unprecedented.
Yeah, most previously ever had been 4, and then at that event it was 22. So they replaced a bunch of people.
And here's the thing, they were able to put on a banging event with those replacements, which means probably there's going to be fewer injuries this year.
I would hope.
Which means that a lot of really talented people who were able to compete might not necessarily have a guaranteed spot, and so that just means that the jiu-jitsu and submission grappling talent pool has grown to the point now where even the reserve people are fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And so
William Tackett was a reserve at ADCC, a weighed-in reserve.
Tyratolo was?
Tyratolo came in. He filled a slot like week before. I forget who dropped out. He came in, and then he showed to the world how good him and eventually his brother was. ADCC is a cool event. It's cool to have the trials. It's cool to have an open way to get into that big tournament. And that's kind of what makes the ADCC such the big, prestigious event it is, because it's like put your money where your mouth is, show up to trials, win trials, get the big show invitation, go into the big event, and here's your shot to compete against the best in the world for what was years and still is the biggest prize money in the sport.
Yep.
$40,000, $50,000 prize pools are on the line. You can make a career and a name off of an ADCC run.
I think Spider is now rivaling them in total
amount. In total, but it's less divisions. So individual prize pool at ADCC has a variety of divisions that I think Spider is 200,000, but it's 100,000 for a division, and then ADCC is 40,000 for a division win.
Right.
So big deal, big important. Super excited we're in ADCC season. There's been some minor rule changes as well. You should check them out. We'll probably talk about rules for ADCC a little closer to probably the East Coast or West Coast trials, so coming up here, but that's what's going on. I'm excited this weekend. We want to get into news first before we get into trials.
Yeah, let's do it.
News, not a whole lot of news. We have some dropouts for Who's Number One. We'll talk about that when we get into the preview section for Who's Number One. That's also a massive event that is essentially replacing ADCC this year with very similar level and caliber of grappler, but it's invitation only. You can't win a spot into Who's Number One.
And you also mentioned another piece of news about the pro gym.
Oh, yeah. Well, kind of a pro gym. B-Team in Austin, Texas, which is Craig Jones, Nicky Ryan, Nick Rodriguez, and Ethan Krellenston. They're kind of split off from DDS. They've opened their gym. They are doing like an application process for membership into that gym. And I looked at their class schedule because I was just curious. They have no evening classes. Their classes are 8 a.m. in the morning and then 12 noon, and they have a class, I think, in the morning on Saturday as well. But there are no evening classes. They don't appear to be looking for like run-of-the-mill regular members. They are looking to seemingly build a competitive stable of people. And you'll learn, I think they're going to get people from all levels at that gym, but they are looking to bring people in that can consistently train on that schedule and be part of those classes and essentially be part of the B team and a team in kind of the true sense. And it was very interesting. They also are limiting drop-ins. I think drop-ins are $50 and it's purple belt and above.
Yeah.
And so it's like, they're looking to create what essentially I was thinking about this. What is the first pro gym, dedicated pro gym jiu-jitsu that doesn't have any other, I'm going to use quotes, like normal members? Like you don't have your evening
hobbyists.
Working guys, your hobbyists. Like, and that was really interesting. And we were kind of talking a little bit before. I'm not sure if that's a sustainable model, but it's definitely very interesting. Given
I like it. The more I think about it, because it does. I feel truly for jiu-jitsu instructors who operate their own gym. They're kind of glued to their gym a lot, and like those hours are weird. Your evenings, whatever. You just have to cover stuff, and so I like that they're like, no, we want lives. We want to be able to sleep normally, and jiu-jitsu's gotten to the point where maybe they can support it, and I think you mentioned that the location is kind of like in a strip mall type area.
I don't know where it is exactly, but it looks like they're given the space
it makes
layout.
Sense.
Looks like a strip mall.
The more I think about it, you can do that. You don't have to worry if it's a selective thing. People are gonna go to you because they want to train with you. They know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
As opposed to okay, you got to pick location to attract just your regular Joe Schmo who lives a mile away or something like that. And I can see that working pretty well.
I'd be curious about it. Again, most of those guys make their money from seminars and competitions, so I'm very curious to see how it turns out. Again, I would love to see it succeed and see those guys build a great training staple and have folks and competitors come out of that stable. It would be cool, but it is definitely the first professional gym. I mean, there's certain gyms that have pro classes and have other instructors running that, but to have your pros running the gym, owning the gym, running a stable in the gym. So I'm very curious.
That's B-Team. What I have been out of the loop. What happened with A-Team?
New Wave Jiu Jitsu. No word as of yet, as of this recording, for what they're doing yet.
And that's going to be what, Gordon and Danaher?
And Gary.
And Gary.
Yeah, I think those three. And Gary, I think, is confirmed now, but he just got a title fight and won.
I saw that. That's coming up soon, right?
I think so. Buchecha, I think, is this weekend.
Yeah, Buchecha's this weekend.
And then Gary just got announced, so I think he's... I forgot. I looked at the date, and I've forgotten the date right now, and I know I can't pull it up while we're trying to spitball.
Yeah, news. Buchecha. Has that?
We have talked about it a bit. Miranda and I talked about it a bit with his opponent.
You talked to his opponent?
No, I didn't talk to his opponent.
Okay.
His opponent is a Norwegian man.
Okay.
And I do not believe he speaks my language.
Okay.
But that actually wouldn't be out of character for me to text some guy and be like,
so
hey.
What do you think is going to happen?
I think Buchecha is going to do ground stuff and take it to the ground. That's what he should do. He's a black belt. He's Verdum. He is a modern Verdum.
Maine. We all know that. The question is, like, is this like a Hadra Gracie or like, Gavel, level like MMA entry, like, which for those of you unfamiliar, both of them are at the pinnacle of jiu-jitsu and did not do so well in MMA.
They both did pretty good. Gavel lost to Woodley in Strikeforce. Honestly, both their records are good. Like, Hadra beat Randleman. Like, they got some good wins. Buchecha, again, I never like to call a guy's debut. We looked at Yuri Samos. His debut was rough. We've watched plenty of other folks have very rough debuts. They were highly credentialed jiu-jitsu folks. Buchecha's fighting a heavyweight. Again, people just get knocked out. You never know. I could see him taking it. His opponent is not green, but is a less experienced pro. Buchecha's not a pro yet. It's a winnable fight for him, but he could fight through some adversity if he doesn't get it to the ground quick. I think he will get it to the ground quick based on the two previous fights I've seen from his opponent, but it could be wrong.
Who knows?
I also love picking MMA fights. That's what I did for you. You know the story with me. It became a problem, and I had to stop. Probably 6 years ago, I was like, this takes up too much of my time in my life. I have to stop. Picking MMA fights. I think Buchecha will do well.
We'll
but again, with
see
heavyweight debuts, I'm always hesitant to pick heavyweight debuts. But him and Gary are both fighting in ONE FC, and I'm amped to see it. I love watching guys get paid.
Yep.
And I hope they get paid in ONE FC. Other than that, I don't think I have any additional big pieces of news. I kind of want to move into trials unless you have any other news. All right, let's do it. First trials for ADCC 2022. It still has the 2021 qualifier, which is just a funny little blurb here. Where do you want to start? I figure we start at under 66 kilograms for the men's divisions. We had we're just going to talk about the finals matches because if we go more than that, it just gets too into the weeds and it's too much.
There's already names here that you might not recognize.
That I can't
pronounce.
There are names
that you will recognize, absolutely. If you
most of the winners you'll recognize. Honestly, most of the winners here are guys we've seen win trials before, or win European events before, or we've seen on the European stages before, either at Euros or in other European events. I recognized every winner here, except for
what's the other promotion in the UK?
Grapplefest.
No,
Polaris.
Polaris. Yeah, a lot of these guys you'll see.
Are Polaris champions.
Polaris, and speaking of which, under 66 kilograms, Ashley Williams defeating Gairbeg Ibragimov via points 3-0. So this match was a lot of Ash playing guard, which we've seen before. He has a nice overhead sweep from butterfly in the no points portion of the match, which maybe we should talk about that. ADCC has one of the most unique rule sets. I really love it. It generally generates pretty exciting matches, and part of that is also just the prestige of ADCC gets people to go ham. But
and the caliber of guys, we just like you mix. It has the best mix of caliber of guy, stakes on the line, and prestige of event, which kind of makes people lay all their cards on the table.
Yeah. And it only happens every 2 years, so there's no waiting until putting on a subpar. So anyway, the first portion of the match is no score. So it's essentially submission. That submission is the only way that you can win in the first portion.
In the first 3 minutes of the match, and then after 3 minutes of the match, they call points, and you can score points. If you did pull or you got a penalty or a negative point in that section of the match, it does carry over into the points section, so you can be docked points for doing certain things into the points section, but it doesn't actually go onto the board until that section of time occurs.
So ADCC has a unique point system as well. -1 point for
For a
pulling.
guard pull.
And a back take is 3 points.
Yeah.
Sweeps are still 2. Takedowns are still 2, as I recall.
You're looking at me, and I'm going like, that sounds right, Emil.
I think that they don't have ads. I think near stuff you get awarded 1 point.
I think so. And then also they have a much stricter takedown requirement for takedowns. Like to take someone down, you have to like settle them and like stop them.
Right.
It's not like, oh, they're kind of on the ground. It's like, no, your shoulders are down. Like you're
almost like pin. Yeah.
You're pinned essentially before they award takedown points. Yep. Which I actually kind of really do like for takedown rulings. It's like it forces guys to really commit on them. And I just generally think that you see a less lazy wrestling stand-up game. ADCC is also based on much more of a wrestling rule set and a submission grappling rule set versus a jiu-jitsu rule set. Typically, it is won by jiu-jitsu practitioners, but it comes out of a submission wrestling and grappling rule set more so than a standard jiu-jitsu rule set.
So, with that being said, nice overhead sweep from Ash, but it's in the no points portion of the match. Then very heavy pressure from Gairbeg.
Really, for a huge section that he's just putting pressure. He's also a little bit on the outside. Sorry, this is actually the wrong match. They're consistently moving into a lot of different leg locks towards the end. And for me, Ash was on the offensive for most of those transitions.
Yeah, and so the match ends 0-0, and for tied matches, they will do an extra bit of time.
I think I got confused about this.
So
3 or 4 minutes.
It's not overtime exactly. It's just
extended time where it's like the match just continues in the points section if there are no points and there's not. If the judges want it to go, it'll continue to go, and then after that period of time, they will go to decision.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in the extra time, we'll call it, Gairbeg does an arm drag, and then it looks like this looks to me like a sambo combo, like where he does the arm drag, he off balances Ash, and then it looks like he starts hooking the far leg for kind of like a roll into saddle.
Yeah.
So like
he started
a sambo.
Kind of set it up a little bit.
But the thing is that Ash immediately scooped up his Gairbeg's leg in a single leg and basically was able to duck under and take the back off of it and score 3 points. And then, again, it's not overtime, so it's not like, golden score or anything like that.
Yeah.
The extra time elapses, and then at the end,
I actually kind of like that. I like that, like, it's not just the first to score, because people
I don't want the rules to change, because
first to score gets weird because guys are like, will work so hard to not do anything,
right?
And like, this is just extra time where the match just
that's
continues.
The thing is you change the rules, people gamify those rules, and they will
look
do
for
whatever
the rule change,
right? So if you add a little bit of extra time, a modest amount of extra time with the same rules, I think that can work in some formats.
Mm-hmm.
So the time expires. Ash is up 3-0 and wins based on points.
Yeah, there was a weird thing that happened on the match that I was looking at for the timer. It was like stuck at like 3:16.
Yeah,
I was
I think
super.
They also weren't giving like it didn't.
All the points were weird. So
yeah.
I pulled a couple of different results from different sites, and I've sort of aggregated them together. If we do get the points or the scoring or something wrong, that's why, because the scoreboard and the on-screen time and the on-screen points were not correct.
Yeah.
Like a good portion of the time. And instead of like me meticulously going through, we're just going to talk about the matches, and then if something is incorrect, that's why, because we were getting different information, and I tried to aggregate them all and watch the match and figure it out, because the scoreboard's not always, the actual on-mat scoreboard isn't always visible.
Next up, 77 kilograms, Oliver Taza defeating Magomed Dzharbaev via points 2-0. Lots of butterfly guard from Taza.
It's 2-2 actually, and it goes to a penalty. See, this is
okay,
one of those things. There's 3 different BJ Heroes, Flow Grappling, and Grappling Insider all have different results for it. And I watched the match and I was like, well, I'm confused now. I can see how you got to all 3 of those results. The original ruling was decision, but it actually looked like it was a penalty that Taza wins it on.
Awesome. I liked Taza's sweep, and in the last minute he hits an overhead sweep when Magamed was sort of pressuring in standing, and then they end up in double-seated guard, and Taza goes for a leg entanglement and pummels his legs to the inside, which then he's able to use to tech up.
Dude, that tech up sweep is something we see a lot from Taza, and it's one thing I actually, since watching so many Taza matches in the last year, it's something I've started to incorporate, where it's like, if you can get your legs inside, and I have that grip on the outside ankle, and like
they're not going anywhere.
You can't stand up into my hand, and unless you can free that grip, and because I'm on the end of your heel and leg, it's a really hard grip to break. You have to overextend your hands to get there, and I can re-drag off it into a leg lock. It's such a weird, like, powerful grip is on that back of the heel. You can just lift them up, their hips tilt, and then I can get my hips and my legs underneath me and pass or tech up off of it. We're seeing it used more and more and more, either off of the ankle pick or to score like this. And again, it's something that I noticed Taza doing a lot, and a lot of the high-level no-gi guys do a ton. But it was really nice to see it on display here in the finals, where Taza just uses it to get up. It's a very easy tech up. Magomed tries to sort of defend it, but Taza's kind of already getting his hips and getting his pressure into him. Magomed kind of scoots, but Taza's able to get the points off it. So it was a really nice bit of tech that we're seeing more and more, and kind of playing with myself was just cool to see it in action.
So next up we have 88 kilograms, Eoghan O'Flanagan defeating Thomas Loubersanes via heel hook.
Dude, he was on fire with this entire tournament. I think it's the fifth heel hook he hits, and he heel hooked everyone.
Yeah. Tom was basically, knew that he had to protect his feet, and so he was passing from his knees the whole time and kind of just like collar tying and stuff. And
really on a distance. Like, he was not looking to... He was...
I mean, that was... Passing is a generous term. I saw it as he was neutralizing Eoghan and wanting to... have some activity to eat up time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, sure enough, later on in the match,
really on the first big passing attempt,
launches into an attempted Toriando. And Eoghan basically inverts and gets a bite on the leg, gets in the saddle. Nice little inside heel hook.
Yeah. Finishes. One thing I thought was really interesting is that Eoghan elects to sit at the beginning of the match and take the negative immediately. And I was like, ooh, that's ballsy. Like, to just go, you know what, I'm just going to sit. And like ADCC, that is a ball, especially at like 88 kilograms. Like, that is not a division we typically see people just sit down. We typically see 88 is really, we see a lot of the really, really strong wrestling come into play, I think.
I mean, yeah, you had Mason Fowler, you had Mateusz Juskowiak, who ended up winning it.
You had Craig in there, and Craig shows off his wrestling,
Yeah,
although we know
Craig,
him as...
Craig, if you try to sit on Greg, you're in a world of hurt anyway.
You had Hulk in there, I think. You had Spriggs in there. Like, is Hulk under 99? I think Hulk is...
Yeah,
all the Atos guys moved around a ton, and I've gotten very confused.
Am I thinking about 77?
No, didn't say no. You had him. You had him right. You had all the
then where the fuck was Hulk?
He fought Gaudio, so he was. I think 88. Yeah, I think 88, and that
he just didn't make it very far. Man, I gotta look this up. I can't remember.
It's been a rough one. I hate that offhand. I can't remember all of the divisions, and I realized there's 98 athletes, and we can recall most of it most of the time.
I wonder if did Craig take him out?
Who took out Hulk? Let me.
Yeah,
let me look
this is gonna bug the shit out of me.
So you keep talking through the result in the match, and I'll look up.
The reason why it's gonna bug the shit out of me is because if it ended up that Deniz took out Hulk and I don't remember it, that's unforgivable because.
So Gordon Ryan beat Hulk. It was under 99.
Oh, and then Kynan was over 99?
Yeah, Kynan was over 99 because they did the switch.
I forgot that there's an over 99 and an under 9. Okay. Yep. All right.
Right.
Cool. Got it. Yep. That's why I wasn't surprised because, I would have had Gordon taking that all day, every day.
So I was wrong about that. That was my bad.
Overall,
just really quick heel hook from Eoghan. Something we've seen him before on many other events. It was very nice to see him counter basically the first time that he had the opportunity to go under to get it and hook it real quick. And there's not a whole lot of Thomas kind of knows that he's kind of gotten and doesn't let his leg break. Doesn't force Owen to like lock up and just twist. And kind of, they get it, and it's gentlemen's. I appreciated it.
99 kilograms. Perttu Tepponen defeats Samuel Karas via points.
We've seen Tepponen before. I think Tepponen won trials last time. Guard looks good. You know, he uses wrestling. He really works.
I liked it a lot. Basically, Sam was attempting either a knee cut or back step. And Tepponen just grabbed up his feet for an old school sweep. And it was pretty cool. He actually did it the way Danaher teaches it, which is a combination of Eddie Bravo and I can't remember who else. Maybe Chael Sonnen. So that was cool to see. Like, it evidently that combo has proliferated, and yeah, he's able to. Tepponen is basically able to come up on an old school sweep and initiates a scramble, where Samuel was basically just Granby rolling. Like he Granby rolls twice.
That far side like hook he had that Tepponen had on the inside of the hip was nice. Like to counter the Granby roll. Like, he's so deep
he leg
in
dragged. It was awesome. It was really beautiful leg drag answer to the Granby roll, and then he's able to take the back. That's honestly like that was a nice sequence.
The whole sequence because I loved that we kept seeing like Tepponen stay on the hips, and like work with the rolls, and we kept seeing Samuel continue to like Granby and like neither guy accepted the position, and both were willing to work. And many times you see someone will start this Granby sequence, and then the other guy like just doesn't follow or isn't able to follow, and they go back in the guard, and that's sort of the match. But to see, I think there were 3 separate like Granby attempts out of this that Tepponen's able to either with the leg drag or with the far side hook of the hand on the hip follow in and start pressing on the chest and the body to prevent the hips from getting away from him so he could follow to the back. It was just overall a really cool sequence that I had off of like a combo of a jumping knee slide and guillotine attempt that the opponent uses his guard and gets out of. It was just a very nice sequence, and I like when guys are willing to fight to that degree in those positional sequences in order to take positions and not just get passes. It was very, very nice and refreshing to see.
Over 99 kilograms, Heikki Jussila defeats Mateusz Juskowiak via points. I don't have a whole lot to say about this.
I don't have a ton. It was a plus 99 match where both guys had a lot on the line, a lot of pushing, a little bit of wrestling work from Jussila. He gets down in the front headlock a couple of times, kind of works a go behind, works some positional stuff, goes to overtime, and it goes eventually to ref's decision. That was sort of the flavor of the match. I think he really front headlocks and snaps down twice, and I think that's what gets it done for Jussila. I think Juskowiak is the previous winner of the trials for 2019 ADCC. So, again, it kind of speaks to the level you're fighting a former trials winner in the finals. But I don't have a ton more to add there. Move on to the ladies.
Yep. Women's 60-kilogram Peyton Letcher defeats Ashley Bendel via rear naked choke.
I'm going to come out here and try to win holy shit with the quickness.
Dude.
Whole match is what? Minute and a half?
Yeah. Peyton
with the reset?
A fucking Haraigoshi with a whizzer.
Was it a Haraigoshi? Or it was super high on the hip, and I wanted to ask you because I wrote it in my notes as Haraigoshi, and I went, some judo person is going to tell me it's wrong.
That's a really good point. I don't know because you're right. It was really high up on the hips. I would call it a Haraigoshi.
Yeah, that's what I called it too.
I'm a complete Philistine with judo.
But it was that really good Haraigoshi that we've seen, like Craig Jones hit on Dante Leon at Kasai, or like where you get in front of their hips so much and you drag them over, and it gives that big arch of the legs as they come over, and like the nice ippon as they land. It's a
violent throw, yeah.
It's a violent throw, but it's also like it looks really impressive when you see it.
It's so satisfying.
And in no-gi. Like in gi, it's impressive. In no-gi, you're like, oh, you did that from an overhook grip. When all of my judo is off of overhook, so I love when I can see it in matches where it's like, it works. It works at a high level. Beautiful throw. Gets to the back after that throw with the quickness. Basically, Ashley tries to turn away, and Peyton is just on. Throws in the rear naked choke. Honestly, really, really tight. I thought she was going to get it almost instantaneously. They roll off the mat, and I love ADCC for this. They go off the mat, and we're still going. It's not over till the ref determines that we're in a position I can stop him in. She lets Peyton continue to kind of fight for the choke. Ashley does a really good job of like pulling the hands off and freeing up a little bit. Ref tells him to stop. We restart in the center of the mat, and then eventually Peyton's able to turn down and get a belly down rear naked choke, and it was just a beautiful sequence. I think Grappling Insider or BJJ Heroes actually had Peyton as a South African.
Cool.
Which is really cool. We haven't seen a South African in ADCC in, I think, some time. Only other African continent player to win, I think, was back in 2002. I forget, in the men's, I think, 99. So we've seen former South African wrestlers come in and do on ADCC. So it's nice to see a female South African player come in and perform. So
Sweet.
Again, and just with the quickness, we'll watch this finals match. It is impressive.
It's great.
I think we're going to see more from.
It's a highlight. The whole match is a
Oh
highlight.
yeah, it's also like a minute and a half.
Yeah. So next we have women's 60 kilogram Magdalena Laska defeats Slavka Halubjakova.
I wasn't going to try. The
via
European
knee bar.
names kind of scare me.
So Slava gets a nice little body lock takedown, and Magdalena basically just is like
Rolls through
cool,
on it.
just rolls into saddle. She's like, all right, I'm here. Cool. I'm gonna take your knee now. I figure this was a very main.
Yeah, I've used this before.
Yep.
I did love how the sequence that started it off though is that there's essentially a high guard and some high guard triangle armbar combo, but not from the actual arm going through, but just from the double calves on the top of the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically they I cannot get her name. Slavka just stands up out of it and goes like, nope. And then instead of like getting slammed down or like anything else, they both just stand up. Slavka gets the body lock, goes for the throw behind, doesn't go for like a 5-point throw over the head, but goes for that like just, I forget the judo term for it, where it's a little inside or outside trip over your own leg. But when she does it, she doesn't lift up and throw away. So they end hip to hip. And if you end hip to hip, if you as the person getting thrown in this land first, so you get to dictate where you roll your hips. So she rolls her hips up as name again? Slavka's leg is still kind of completing the throw, and then she can basically turn away, and you can end up right in that knee bar. It's something you don't see a ton, but it is a really nice counter to these sort of takedowns where you end up leg to leg. As the person that lands first, you get to get on the initiative and scramble first. We've seen Tonin do stuff like this as well. I can't think of the specific match. It might have been actually the Paul Harris match. I think this happened, or a similar transition to this, like this, happened at the beginning of the Paul Harris match in the first, 3 minutes. But it's really nice to see. It's not something we see very often, but it was just a beautiful transition to the knee bar. And Laska blocks at the knee bar and just starts to extend it, and that, Slavka knows that she's been gotten, and there's that. So with these, I believe these two women are now the European champions for ADCC for 2021, but I do not know if they get an entrant into ADCC, because typically there was some discussion about this earlier in the year that this was going to be an entrant into ADCC, but I do not know if this is an entrant or this is just the European champion. I know the second trials for Europe will have an entrant into ADCC for the women, because the women's divisions are only 8 and the men's divisions are 16. There was a big discussion if that was going to change. It was going to change. There was going to be an addition of another division, but then the pandemic happened, and that has since sort of been, I think, put on the back burner because they just weren't able to get it changed. So unfortunate, but still amazing to see, the champions here for the women. It was both very, very exciting submission matches, and I was a big fan.
Yeah.
Any sort of closing thoughts for ADCC?
No, I'm just looking forward to the main event, and a little bit the North American trials will be entertaining too. So.
Super excited for it. I still haven't booked a room yet. We're going to book a whole house and then go up there with all my recording equipment. I'm very, very excited for trials. Josh is doing trials. Rob's doing trials. So it'll be a very fun event. Do you want to move into our recap of Fight to Win 184?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I'm just going to talk about the main event here. Dustin Akbari defeated Hugo Marquez via split decision. We'll talk about that decision here in a moment.
So Hugo with a lot of pressure from the beginning of the match,
Yeah.
which kind of anticipated. At
Definitely
one
anticipated.
point, Hugo actually almost blasts him off the mat.
I think two separate times. There was one that was very, very close. It was a very nice penetrated double that Akbari does a good job of sprawling off of, but Hugo kind of continues to stay under the hips and push forward in the blast and Akbari ends up actually off the mat a bit and they have to reset. I think Hugo did a really good job throughout the match dictating and doing something we see a lot in Fight to Win with that elevated stage, pushing the opponent to the edge of the barrier and then shooting off of their response to come back into the barrier or come back in off the edge of the mat. And I think it's a strategy we're seeing a lot of the black belts using because there's a stage and I can't just run off the mat. I am forced to engage you there, and it's created a really interesting dynamic, I think, in the last probably 4 months that we're seeing people really, especially in the main events, really leaning into this tactic of, I know you're not going to walk back any further because you can't because there's a stage edge there. And the more I think about it, the more I kind of like what it's bringing because we're seeing a lot more aggressive shots towards the edge. We're seeing some countering there happening, but we're also seeing a lot of people going off the mats, and I'm curious to see how that meta will continue to shift and change because we're currently, I think, at the beginning of a change in the shift of the Fight to Win meta for how people are actually using that elevated stage to their advantage.
Yeah.
And I thought Marquez did an amazing job throughout the match, pushing pressure and putting in and forcing Akbari to have to react to the edge of the stage and the pressure that Marquez was putting forward.
So towards the end of the match, Dustin shoots him, he goes for a shot himself, and Hugo gets an arm in guillotine, and Dustin has to pretty seriously defend it.
There's sometimes probably 20 seconds of a good solid defense where Marquez is on top, looking to pass around the legs fully. He's not locked into his own guard. He's sort of still trying to fence out Akbari's legs a little bit, but they're on a half guard sort of.
Yeah, he's basically scooped up one of the legs.
Yeah.
So then, Dustin is able to fend that off, and then in the final seconds, Dustin goes for his own leg lock, and true to form, leg locks in the last 30 seconds are generally
that's what we say
it's
on
a
the grappling,
punctuation that people are trying to do for the refs, and in this case, Hugo looked bored, he was
not worried. It wasn't
even
a submission attempt. It was it is technically a submission attempt for the rules, and that's, you're playing to your rule set. I understand it. We call these it is a position that could result in going to a submission. It's you're setting up a position.
Right.
It's like a high guard. It's not a submission yet. You're in a position where you can begin to throw submissions.
Right.
And Akbari starts to throw that leg lock in there, ankle lock or heel hook there.
Yeah, but his hips are not in the right position. It doesn't look cinched up.
He was starting to set up something where he could set up a leg lock submission off of.
Right.
And Marquez sort of, waits it out and looks and okay, I have to put my pressure into this, put my hips into this, put my leg down, but I'm not defending a submission yet. I'm defending a submission entry.
Right.
And then, we go to judge's decision, and Akbari gets it via split decision. And the commentary, we went, not sure about that. And Mayo and I both went, not sure about that. Again,
I would have gone for Hugo. But
I would as well. But again, the Fight to Win rule set is very kind of straightforward. With if it's going to decision, you guys both should have been more active and looked harder for the submissions. That's and so Seth's talked about that at length over the years of hey, you guys got to do more if you're upset about the decisions. I thought I went the other way, but Akbari in the eyes of the judges, in the eyes of two of the judges, did enough to get the decision, and that's that is how it works on Fight to Win.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything else on Fight to Win I want to run through. Let's move into the previews. Emil, do you have anything else you want to talk about in recaps?
No, let's preview Who's Number One Championship.
On to our preview of Who's Number One Championship on Flow Grappling. This is the replacement to ADCC this year. This was basically filling the spot on the same weekend that ADCC 21 was supposed to happen before it got bumped back a year due to all the restrictions and trials not being able to happen for a year. So Flow Grappling is putting on, is it 5 divisions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 division tournament with, I think, $30,000 on the line for each division. It is a banger. It is essentially, if you were to make ADCC invite only where there's no trials leading up to it, you just pick the best and baddest grapplers that you can get a hold of on a weekend and make them compete for 30 grand. 8-man brackets, not 18-person brackets, not 16-person brackets. Very happy with how the divisions look. Let's talk about it, Emil. Which division do you want to start with?
I mean, we'll start with the men's 155 pound.
Yeah, let's read through them. We got Gabriel Souza, we got Diego Pato Oliveira, we got Mikey Musumeci, we got Cade Rotolo, we got Damian Anderson, we got Josh Cisneros, we got Gio Martinez, and we have Cole Abate.
Yeah, I mean, Mikey's my favorite here.
Mikey's my favorite here, too. Mikey has a recent win over Gio Martinez that was close as far as... It wasn't really close. It was very clearly for Mikey, but Gio definitely gave him problems in certain places, and it was a very contentious match. It wouldn't surprise me to see them bracket them in the first again, just to make them to force the rematch to happen. I would be unhappy if they did.
I don't think they'd do that.
I would hope they don't. I hope they put them on the opposite side.
I mean,
of the bracket.
there's other weird matchups here. I'd like to see like Gio and Josh Cisneros, for example.
I would love to see that match.
So yeah,
let's see Cade Rotolo versus any. I mean, honestly, what I love about this bracket is there is not a single first round matchup that I wouldn't want to see, and that's amazing bracket. There's not a second. There's not a single matchup here that I would be unhappy to see in any round. So that's awesome. I'm super excited for the bracket. Again, I'm going to give the lean to Mikey, although Mikey is going to be the smallest person in this bracket by a not insignificant margin. He's going to be outweighed by, I think Gio's the second smallest person here. I'm not sure what Cole Abate walks around at. I think Cole Abate is easily in the 150s as well.
What's up with Damian Anderson?
Damian Anderson is a brown belt now from DDS. We saw him look really good at the Emerald City Invitational. He beat Richard Alarcon via Kimura off the mat, whipped a Kimura off the mat, ended up finishing it. Then he got submitted, or no, he took Gianni Grippo all the way through the overtime. In the EBI rules, and that's the only reason he got out of that tournament. We've seen some good stuff from him. He had the no-limit time match with one of the Tackett brothers, the middle Tackett brother. I'm blanking on Tackett's name right now. Andrew Tackett. That went on Third Coast, and Tackett beat him there. He's definitely the dark horse of the division. Him and Abate, we haven't seen them against a huge host of high-level people. We've seen Anderson above against more high-level people, but Abate, I think, is a new purple belt, a late blue belt, 16-year-old AOJ prodigy. You always see him in the corner with Guy and Hafa and Tynan Daupra. He's always coaching at all the major events. We saw him at Elevate Your Game, coaching for Jonathan Alves.
Cool. Yeah, I want to see what he does.
Yeah, and there was a pissing match that happened in Instagram comments between the Mendez brothers and people talking about, like, maybe he shouldn't have been there. Basically, like, look, he's essentially a black belt. And it was like, that's one way to put it.
Dude, the Mendez brothers, absolutely, if they back someone,
yeah, they're
good.
Oh yeah, he's very. We've seen him.
He's never put someone.
Nope. He looks amazing. Between him and Anderson are the dark horses, and again, if you know the level of both those guys, that kind of speaks to, how good they are. I think Gabriel Souza can definitely make a run. Pato Oliveira can make a run, depending on the rules. I think Cade is going to give a ton of people problems. I think Josh Cisneros is going to get. I think every single person in this bracket can give people problems and put up an absolutely murderous match against anyone.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's such an interesting bracket. I don't think anyone will play it safe, because I don't think you can play it safe, because everyone is so dangerous in this 155-pound division, and everyone has great leg locks, has great top game, has great passing, has great inversions, and like rear naked choking ability. Again, I lean Mikey here just because no one has given me a reason to not, unless you're 100 pounds bigger than Mikey, no one's given me a reason to not go Mikey Musumeci. But I am curious to see, if people have watched a couple of his matches on Fight to Win and who's number one, and can come up with a different game plan to stifle him. I don't believe so, but I would be curious because
I doubt that.
I'm trying to build a narrative here.
No,
I doubt that too.
I doubt it.
So who do you want to see in the finals? If we don't see Martinez and Mikey in the finals, I would kind of
Cisneros and Mikey.
Either Mikey and Cade or Mikey and Cisneros, I think would be the most, for me, exciting matches. And I think I would learn the most about, again, Mikey's no-gi game, and then how Cade or how Josh deal with such a technical guy like Mikey with such a dangerous leg lock game and such a good back take game.
I want to see Cisneros like he's already, like, certainly in the gi started to take on like world champs.
Oh yeah,
like
that Pans run he made was
ridiculous.
Unworldly in 2021 or 2020.
Yeah. So anyway, next division, women's 115. We have Maisa Bastos, Grace Gundrum, Jessica Kahn, Danielle Kelly, Tubby Alican, Tammy Musumeci. Excuse me.
We haven't seen in a while.
Jessie Crane and Alex Wynn. I'm taking Maisa Bastos all day.
I kind of taken Maisa as well. Again, a big piece of it for me depends on what Tammy shows up. Like, we just haven't seen Tammy in 2 years, so I don't know. Former world champion.
No, Maisa's she's
I love the
not
confidence.
just a champ, she's a dominant champ.
Yeah, she
Like,
is a
she
very
thrashes
dominant
people,
champion.
and in nogi as well. You know, like, she's a beast. So I in fact, that might be my most confident pick.
Yeah, without Brenda Larissa here, who's I think the only person to beat her recently in that division. You know, she's undefeated against. I think she has a win over Khan. She has a win over Gundrum. I think she might actually have 2 wins over Jessica Khan. I think at
She does.
Yeah, yep, at Pans here and at EUG. And the win over Grace Gundrum is actually at Who's Number 1 in 2020. So again, Matt Bastos is definitely the front runner here. Again, I think Tammy Musumeci, depending on how she looks when she shows up. You know, we've seen her have, crazy matches versus Nicolini. I never pick. You and I both have a kind of similar picking strategy. If someone's been gone for a couple years, we pretty much will never pick them, just because there's too many changes to the sport and those X factor picks of like, well, how do they look against the current top of the heap? Yeah, I think Maisa takes it. I'm really curious. I would absolutely love to see Tammy and Maisa go at it. I would also love to see Grace and Maisa go at it. I think that would be a very, very exciting match. Again, Tubby Aliquin has looked fantastic on the fight to win stage. So, should be a super fun bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Men's 185, the bracket that has had the most changes that I'm aware of. We lost Craig Jones in this bracket, but he's replaced now with ADCC Trials winner Oliver Taza. I don't think Taza's actually on the B team, but again, trained with DDS guys and has been part of that crew for the better part of 5 years now, if not a little longer. We have Ty Rotolo, we have Michael Gavel, we have William Tackett, we have Dante Leon, we have John Thor Blank, we have Roberto Jimenez, and just today, Pedro Mourinho has announced that he's dropped and he's been replaced by Jacob Couch of Daisy Fresh fame.
Yeah, that's an awesome
Yeah.
I think in terms of excitement, this is probably going to be the most exciting division by just the sheer number of people whose matches have already been super exciting in the past couple years. I
see pathways easily for Roberto, for John, for Dante, for Micah, for Ty to take this.
Right now I see Ty and maybe Galvao.
I could see Gavel. We did see Dante take a win over Ty at Grapple Fest, but again, that was a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Remember that?
No.
Yeah, it was like Grapple Fest. I forget. I think it was actually it might have been like January, February of 2020. The same card that Cade took on Ash Williams. On that card, we saw Dante take a pretty comfortable win over Ty. But again, since that match, we've seen massive improvements from Ty in both his game planning.
Yeah.
He's gotten bigger. His style has changed. He was using a lot of the leg pin passing there. We really haven't seen him using nearly as much of that now. He didn't have the match with Nicky Ryan. He's now had that match. We've just seen a huge growth and development of Ty coming into his own as a force to be reckoned with. And so I'm really curious to see if that rematch looks any different now. when we almost have 2 years between it. Michael Gavel, again, always super dangerous, always hunting for the finish. We're just starting to see more of him on the U.S. scene, which is, again, why he's in Who's Number One. He's looked great at Third Coast Grappling in that tournament when he took that, but that was also, he had Mourinho to deal with in that tournament. Mourinho's now out. That was the rematch that I was super excited and looking forward to, but with Mourinho out, potentially it also provides an avenue for Roberto Jimenez to get by, because Jimenez has historically had some problems dealing with Pedro Mourinho in Nogi. Now that he's out, Jimenez is now a force to be reckoned with, but is a guy like John Thor Blank able to get onto Roberto Jimenez's legs, because John is so dangerous on the legs. We know John's going to sit. We know he's going to enter for the legs. I think that gives problems to Roberto. I'm curious to see how Tackett will deal with a guy as strong as Thor is on the legs, even though we know Tackett has bulletproof leg lock defense. We can see that in the match with Felipe Andrew there. Super exciting bracket. I wish we had an actual bracket, not just a list of people, because this is the bracket for me that I have the most sort of X factor questions about, because so many guys, both stylistically and with like their strengths and weaknesses, like where guys are stronger, where they're not as strong, will like play into the style matchups and like how they approach each one of the matchups. A lot of these guys also can approach matches in different ways, but typically don't. And so it'd be interesting also to see a guy that will typically come in a certain way approach it like Dante can approach it as a guard player, or he can approach it with that really wrestling heavy style. And it's just sort of what he decides to do tactically in that match leads a lot for me to wonder about in men's 185.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Emil? Who's taking it? Do you still think Gavel?
I think Ty Rotolo or Gavel. Yeah.
I'm going Leon.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going Leon.
I love Leon. Don't
I
get me wrong,
love
he's
Leon.
like my favorite.
I think Leon will have a problem. If he's going to have a problem, it will be with Thor. It will be with Gavel.
I disagree. I think of all people, Dante's going to have the least problem with Thor.
Yeah, that's a good point, because he's not going to break his. He's not going to get his leg broke.
Are you
Yeah,
really
I was thinking
Dante
about.
Leon? No.
Yeah, I was thinking about. Thor had a particular match that stuck out at me. It was the Rustam Chizyab match where he just grabs and rips, and like it threw Rustam off with that really wrestling base, and I was making a contrast to that. But yeah, I think he'll be able to deal with that. Again, Jimenez back take ability, but I think Dante can play that one smart.
So Jimenez is always he's always in the mix. And
if he can get to that guard and get to that double under.
He has a win. Jimenez has a win over Dante in 2020.
What event? Who's number one?
Yep.
Yeah, who's number one? I forgot about the match, actually.
So, yeah, I mean, it's really hard to pick. I would say just Ty has been, he's been impressive. Like,
he showed me no reason to doubt him in his level of improvement.
Right.
Yeah. But I try to, guys, in the rematch, again, I just am curious to see if he approaches Dante the same way.
Jimenez has a win over Ty in 2020 as well. So right now, Jimenez is probably...
You think we get a Jimenez and Gavel final?
That's very likely.
That'll be a fun one, because both of them will just go at it.
Hard to pick this one.
And I'm curious to see if we see a finals between Roberto Jimenez and Michael Gavel, how Michael Gavel will deal with Jimenez's guard. That's the thing that is I have the most questions about, because we've seen Michael get not caught up in people's guards, but we've seen people kind of slow him down and him struggle to adjust tactically to those, to being slowed down like that. And Jimenez is a guy that very much, we saw in like the Nicky Rod fight on Third Coast Grappling, slowed him down. And then if you're unable to sort of fire offense at him, he can take the initiative from you. So, Yeah.
I could see a lot of these guys taking it. I mean, even Tackett and Thor, absolutely, like those guys.
They all have pathways to victory, which is cool. It just sort of, it depends on who shows up on the night.
Right.
And I think that's, for me, that's a super exciting bracket. Again, we don't have the bracket. If we had the bracket, that would answer a lot more questions. I think we'd be able to pick it much more readily if we had a bracket. Right now, we're looking at 8 names and 8 guys that can, put up on any given night and win big events. It's fun. It's a good bracket.
Women's heavyweight: Gabby Garcia, Elizabeth Clay, Anna Carolina Vieira, Rafaela Geddes, Erin Harp, Amanda Leve, Amanda Lowen, and Kendall Rusing. This is a great
bracket, and the biggest question for me is Can the women that Gabby Garcia has faced make adjustments to beat her? Can Elizabeth Clay make the adjustments needed?
I mean, we talked about this before when they matched up. It was definitely like the impression that I got out of that match was like Gabby won it and she was like pretty much in control, but like not. It wasn't like the sun has been fucking eclipsed level domination where there's like no room.
Yes.
This was very much like with a few more matches, I think Elizabeth will start to take it.
And then right after that, we saw Garcia lose the match to Jesus.
Right.
And now Jesus is the only person to beat her in gi and no gi.
Right.
So I'm curious. We also saw Ana Carolina Vieira take a match and Rafael Leguedes take a match over Elizabeth Clay with very different tactical adjustments. We saw Aaron Harp take a match over Rafael Leguedes as well, kind of out of nowhere. I didn't pick that at all. And she's now showed up. It's a very interesting bracket. We could see a changing of the guard here.
I agree. I'm 100% with you, man. Actually, the more I look at this, the more I get most excited out of the results from this. Like Gabby's amazing, and like if she continues her run of dominance, that's fantastic. Yeah. But a lot of people are starting to close that gap.
And a lot of people have all the tape study on her. Like that's the other weird thing about being champion for so long, 4 ADCC titles.
Yeah.
Is people know what she's going to do and how she's going to do it.
Tape study is like, there's nothing you're going to gain from tape study on Gabby Garcia. She's going to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
And she's going to
put you into the ground.
She's going to put you in a dark place. And like, she's going to crush you and you will not be able to create space. And that's 100% technique on Gabby's part. Like she's very adept at controlling. And so
she limits your movement.
But Elizabeth Clay was making a lot of room for herself. And that's the reason why I was like, with more time, I see this going differently. Because for the first time I saw someone just being able to create space when they needed it from Gabby.
And then to Jesus, we saw do it again.
Yep.
Make the adjustments. She talked about in the match they had at Pans versus, I know how to beat her now. I know what I need to be doing, what adjustments I made. And then she was able to put that into practice in that Who's Number One match in the rematch to beat her.
So, I want to see what happens here.
I think that...
my pick is Gabby, but like...
My pick is Gabby because I have no reason to pick against her.
Right.
But it could be very interesting.
I agree.
And that's why I'm excited about this division, because we could see a changing of the guard here.
Hell of a lot more interesting than the men's heavyweight, which Kainan Duarte, Orlando Sanchez, Tim Spriggs, Kyle Bame, Luis Panza, Hasim Rita, Tex Johnson, and Mason Fowler.
This is everyone from 88 up to plus 99. They were like, "Hey, you big men's heavyweight," and I'm like, "I'm not against it." It's kind of Duarte's to lose in a big way.
Yeah, as pretty much any division is.
That's reasonable. If
Gordon's
not there, it's kind of that's it. It's like you have Gordon, you have Penna, depending on the event, and then you have Kainan.
Honestly, I would at this point I would put Kainan above Penna.
Yeah, we see him especially Nogi.
Yeah, Kainan is very
just
active.
because he's been so active. We have we have more information on him. That match that he put on against Vieira,
and he's also Kainan is like constantly adapting his game. Whereas Penna might be, but I just don't know.
Yeah, we've seen less from him recently.
I am honestly Mason is phenomenal. And the fact that Mason can not just shut Craig Jones down, but like beat him
in EBI rules and SUG, which is its own weird thing.
Almost an ADCC too.
He
choked him out in ADCC.
And then Craig choked him out.
Yeah, but he was winning the majority of that match.
And arguably there was a scoring error in that match as well, by the way.
Yeah.
That would have had Mason ahead. Again, it's a fun match. You should, if you have not seen that match, go back and watch Craig Jones versus Mason Fowler.
What I'm saying is Mason can weather the most dangerous leg locks. And so
he has...
I kind of want to see what he can do against Kainan. I would love to see that. I'd just love to see that.
It would be interesting. I think Orlando Sanchez is an interesting guy. We haven't seen anything from Sanchez since his match with Nick Rodriguez at ADCC 2019. Orlando Sanchez is going to come in probably 300.
What's the rule set here? Is it ADCC?
It's who's number one rules. It's modified who's number one championship rules. So it's like it's 15-minute matches, and it is. I think it's 15 minutes. Again, I don't remember. It's a 2-day event.
I don't want 15-minute matches, man.
It's a little bit long, and then they show you who's winning basically every 5 minutes, but it's a continuous match, and then they go to judge's decision or the submission.
Not a good rule set.
You and I like 6-minute matches. We're big fans of 6-minute matches.
Oh, you finally come around.
I mean, a little bit, Emil.
Okay.
This event, I'm going to be down for it, but we will see.
I can fuck with a little bit longer, like, or like ADCC style shit. But
yeah. So that's a big X factor. I think Kyle Bain and Mason Fowler are going to have a match at SUG coming up in October. So we'll potentially see a preview of that. I am kind of curious about if we do see that ahead of time. Ponza's big. We've seen him struggle against the best of the best in Nogi. It's really Duarte. It's who can give Duarte the most problems, and I think that he deals with the size of Sanchez. I think he deals with the wrestling of Spriggs. I think he deals with the leg locks of Kyle. I think he can deal with the guard play of Ponza. I think he can deal with the stand-up and the lankiness of Rita. I think he deals with the leg locks of Johnson, and he can exploit the passing there. And then honestly, Fowler's the wrestling and the back control. I just don't think we'll see Fowler get to the back. I just am curious to see if Fowler's level of wrestling.
Does he have enough pressure to keep Kynan on his back foot?
Can he take the initiative from Kynan and put Kynan in a place that he doesn't want to be in?
I mean, Mason can absolutely, like, he has a gas tank. That guy has a fucking gas tank. And don't get me wrong, like, all of these guys do. But there's something about the sheer volume of he's like a volume fighter. He's like the equivalent of like a volume fighter. And I'm just curious to see what that like. I can't think of a time anyone has pushed Kynan around like that.
Other than even the matches with Gordon at Nogi Worlds, like he was in it the entire time. I'm trying to think of a match that Kynan has like had gas tank be a factor, and even in the finals, gas tank,
just like a little bit of like pressure,
Even both matches with Nick Rodriguez and ADCC, that was 20 minutes. And then, weathered that the entire way, looked good the entire way. Again, I think it's Kynan's to lose, but it's one of those, he's the best of the best at the heaviest weight class. He can handle the guys. So super curious about that, but I do love men's heavyweight as everyone from 88 up to, plus 99. The smattering of folks is nice. We have some guys that, in 85 that were previously competitors at men's heavy or against the people in the men's heavyweight bracket. So very excited about that. It should be a ton of fun. Absolutely looking forward to it. I'm going to have folks over at the house. It's because, like, why wouldn't I? It's a 2-day event. I got to figure out how to manage that, but it might be just having people over at the house 2 days in a row because it's worth it, because I'm amped about it and I'm super excited about it. Other than that, we have 2 other events happening this weekend. We have Fight to Win 185 happening on the 24th. That's on Friday. We don't have any announcements for grapplers on that card yet, but you should look out on the Fight to Win Instagram page. They will post those when they have them. We also have, happening September 24th as well, we have Grapple in the Temple. The main event for that is Matheus Diniz versus David Garmo. Very tough match for Garmo. Again, we both see who's number one. Diniz has looked good, although he has had the recent match with Gordon and Kynan coming off back-to-back losses. But again, former ADCC champion.
Where did you fight Kynan? Was that who's number one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Kynan,
I can't remember.
Yeah, Kynan, he cloverleafed him in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
2.5. That one. Yeah, it was just super quick. It was so fast we forgot.
Like, Kynan was like...
He just looked on another level. And
he just like looked like almost bored.
Dude, if we get that Kynan this weekend, ain't no one in the world beating him. I forgot about that match. You're right.
God damn, dude.
If he comes out and has that look about him.
It's like that fucking... He's like that meme that's like, you haven't even seen my final form shit. You know, where it's just like every time we see him, he's adding really dangerous new wrinkles and like...
So that should be fun. Very tough match for Garmo, but
dude, think
should
about
be very
that.
exciting for an intro.
In the span between ADCC 2019 and now, he has become a proficient leg locker. He's gone from getting submitted by
He got submitted by Cyborg at BJJ Bat. Remember that? Let me pull up this record. Let's have a discussion here. He got submitted by Cyborg by an inside heel hook at BJJ Bat. I think at the first BJJ Bat. Yeah, the first BJJ Bat, and that was, I think, that was middle of 2020. But other than that, he has a heel hook at Subversive 5 over Chris Dempsey. He has a cloverleaf from Mateusz Juskowiak. He has a heel hook winner at Subversive 5.
Dude, yeah, his last
Joao
three.
Costa.
Dude, his last three are fucking heel hooks.
He has the
dude.
rear naked choke against Rodolfo Vieira. Reverse triangle win over Francisco Cueto at Pans.
Yeah.
And then
I'm saying, dude, his last three his last three wins were all fucking leg locks.
His last two losses were Lachlan Giles and Cyborg via heel hook.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that like he clearly was like,
He
I'm
clearly
gonna work
figured
on
it
this.
out, yeah. So, again, very excited. Should be a fantastic weekend. I'm going to try to get a couple hosts in for next Monday because we have a bunch of stuff to cover, and I'll be very excited. Because it'll be like essentially like a big ADCC show where you got to talk about all the matches. So it's going to be like an hour. It's going to be like a 2-hour show. It's going to be long. So that's all I got for this week. Emil, you got anything fun happening this weekend? Other than watching Who's Number One?
Going to North Carolina, so actually it probably won't be. So yeah.
Nice. We're in North Carolina.
Research Triangle, basically like Raleigh.
Nice.
So.
The Triangle. Yeah, so I trained down there when I worked down there back in probably 5 or 6 years ago. I trained down there for like an open mat or two, and I was like, oh, cool. It was fun to like travel and train. So awesome. That's all I have is just work this week. I have a bunch of medical appointments tomorrow, and then just continue to work, and then be ready on Friday to put my butt in front of the couch and just take notes and watch jiu-jitsu for the next 3 days.
Hell yeah.
And it should be a good weekend. Other than that, not much else going on. Rehab's going well, someone's going well, PT's going well, and everything's pretty great.
Sweet.
So I got nothing else. You got anything else?
That's it.
As other than the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host,
Emil.
and we are the Grappling Rerun. To see you on the mats, whatever that is, stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
Let us know.
reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.